This is the Ohio AgNet from the voice you know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF, where you can count on the trusted performance of Alevos seed treatment to protect your soybean crop. I'm Ty Higgins. New and now at ohioagnet.com, we're starting to count down the biggest stories on our website from 2025. It all starts with Plenty to Yak About, a great story that Joel did way back earlier this year at a yak farm here in Ohio, and the soybean rally that many counted on and the sell-off few expected. You can read that and more online now at ohioagnet.com. Let's check in with Dale Minyo. He had a chance to visit with the newly elected president of Ohio Corn and Wheat, Eric Tipton.
When we talk about membership, the nice part about it from an outsider looking in is you can be a member, and when 5 or 6 people go to Washington, they don't just speak on behalf of their farms, they speak on behalf of a bigger membership, and that's got to be a large responsibility, but a great opportunity as well. How do you feel about that?
You said it best. I think one of the best campaigns that Ohio Corn and Wheat ever ran was the one where they said, we've got your seat at the table. And that is so true. That's what membership goes to. The membership gets us to DC, gets us in front of these folks and speak on behalf of Ohio farmers and Ohio agriculture as a whole. That's a big key to membership.
Eric, we probably ought to make sure we just take a second to clarify. The things we're talking about are association membership, unrelated to checkoff dollars. Those are research, education, and promotion. Even though you're contributing that as a farmer through your corn yield, it's still, this is the association work that works with legislators, state and national level, and it's important that we can differentiate that so we can see where your work will be going.
Yes, it's very clear the difference between membership and checkoff dollars, and you did an excellent job clarifying that. Another reason to be a member of Ohio Corn and Wheat.
As someone moving up and going into the presidency role, we talk about profitability. Is there an impact that Ohio Corn and Wheat Growers Association can help? How will you address that question?
One of the things that we're tasked with is asking, what do farmers need to stay profitable? And I think the answer to that is we need tools. We need to have diverse markets. We need to have the ability to help with ethanol demand and those sorts of things. We need levers to pull, and we need a safety net.
Again, congratulations, Eric. More information on membership can be found at ohiocornandwheat.org.
Thank you, Dale. Had a chance to visit with Brad Bales with Ohio Farm Bureau. He is their Senior Director of State and National Policy. We talked about all the unconventional ways that things got done in 2025, but nonetheless, there were definitely major accomplishments for agriculture on the policy front.
Yes, I would say if you take a look at 2025 on paper, it was very successful when it comes to things legislatively. Everything from the big, beautiful bill to the outcome when we were able to get through the government shutdown, as well as what the administration's been able to do as far as regulatory reform, and then also trying to help us out short term as we struggle with the farm economy and trying to get back to a point of stability.
Even though we got all that accomplished, there's still a lot of talk about modernized farm bill. And we've got the reference prices to where they're in a better spot than they were in 2018. We've got some things extended until at least September of next year. But why do we need a full-fledged new farm bill, even though we're getting all these little things within the farm bill done in a way that helps farmers today?
Yeah, I would say if you go back to the Big Beautiful Bill Act, what was contained in there was a lot of adjustments for reference prices, making sure that those was updated, and then that they continue to update after the first 5 years of what was put into that legislation. So things like price loss coverage, agricultural risk coverage, those are going to be able to take place and help us out when we have issues such as natural disasters, economic downturns, things like that. Usually those provisions are contained within a 5-year farm bill. Unfortunately, other provisions that were in the Farm Bill or that are in the 2018 Farm Bill weren't all addressed. So we still have to do an updated Farm Bill, and we're on the 3rd extension already of the 2018 Farm Bill. So we got to update those provisions, make sure that they carry forward, and then also try to address what can we do long term to figure out what can we do to foster current markets and what can we do to develop emerging markets. What comes to me top of mind is unlimited 88 or year-round E15. Midwestern states find themselves, because of the Clean Air Act, that they're not able to sell those products in the summertime unless they get an annual waiver. What that does is prohibit capital investment when it comes to production of that product. So what we want to do is make it year-round, give some certainty to those who want to make investment into E15 or other biofuels, and give them that certainty so that way they'll invest their money and we know it's going to happen long term. That is just one aspect. If we can get to allowing things such as whole milk to be sold again in schools, that would be significant. And then also trying to do what we can to protect interstate commerce, and there's a handful of other things that we can have. And unfortunately, we have another extension into next year for the Farm Bill, and I know Chairman Thompson really wants to get to work. The Senate has also communicated that they want to get to work on something that would have bipartisan buy-in. We're ready and willing to have those conversations and get engaged. So we're really excited about this.
It's called job security when you talk about the Farm Bill and year-round E15, milk in schools, all the things that you're going to be working on in 2026. But before I let you go, we just had some major news come out of the White House about that. You mentioned short-term relief, $12 billion, 11 of it for row crop farmers, $1 billion for specialty crop growers. First question for you is, how is this aid package different from what was given to farmers during Trump 1.0?
Well, I don't have a side-by-side comparison. What I do know is, right now we do have a struggling farm economy, and some might say this is too much, some might say it's not enough. I'm not going to get into the debate. All I know is if this amount of money means that more family farms are going to still continue to be in business in 2026, that's a good thing. And then at that point, the provisions that we talked about in the big beautiful bill, those will be in effect, and then those can engage. But I'm hoping lawmakers will hear us out and make some movement on a farm bill and some other things that we can, basically try to stabilize our farm economy by that point. And hopefully we're not in another conversation like this next year where we're talking about short-term relief. We want to be able to implement long-term fixes.
That's Brad Bales, Director of State and National Policy with Ohio Farm Bureau. Time to get a check of the forecast now with Ryan Martin, brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance. Online at seedconsultants.com.
Not too shabby here. High pressure is over the top of us as we start the week. It's still cool Canadian high pressure, but we're on the backside of it. So southwest winds today will allow us to be warmer than yesterday. Full-on warming happens then tomorrow through the end of the week. Well above normal temperatures. I think we may have to watch for a few spits and sprinkles tomorrow, especially in central and southern parts of Ohio. Nothing dramatic. Then warm through Wednesday and Christmas Day on Thursday. In that warmth, I think we may have to deal with some hit and miss of scattered showers from midnight Christmas Eve on through maybe 9 a.m. or so on Christmas morning. Will that bother your travel to Grandma's house? No. But then we see a refiring of scattered rain showers overnight Christmas night through Friday the 26th. Better coverage there, 80% coverage, a few hundredths to maybe half an inch. We stay warm into Saturday the 27th. Cold front coming through the 28th could drop temperatures and also give us some moisture again. But the temperature drop only lasts through the 30th. Warming for the turn of the year again. I'm Ryan Martin.
The Ohio AgNet continues after this.
When you combine the advanced technology of Enlist E3 soybeans with Seed Consultants' dedication to performance in the eastern corn belts, it's a simply better experience. Our Seed Consultants brand soybeans are hand-selected, tested, and proven to perform in your conditions, backed by the local knowledge of Seed Consultants sales professionals. Buy into better soybeans with reliability and results packed into every variety. Visit seedconsultants.com.
Attention farmers and ranchers, Purple Wave's December 30th Ag Auction features top equipment from Basigio Farms LLC Retirement Auction in Gordon, Nebraska. Upgrade your operation with our 2022 John Deere S770 STS Combine, Farm King 2450 Bale Mover, and a powerful 2020 John Deere 8R S10 MFWD Tractor. This is your chance to acquire field-ready machinery that performs, all selling at absolute no reserve to the highest bidder. Visit purplewave.com to view detailed listings and inspection information. Purple Wave Auctions, straight, simple, sold.
Welcome back to the Ohio AgNet. I'm Ty Higgins. Let's check in once again with Dale Mignot.
Joining me is Brian Krager with Bayer, and we're going to talk about DeKalb. First of all, quick couple comments about what was last year's season like, and what did we learn from different areas you work with?
In the areas I work for northeast Kansas, but have counterparts up in Nebraska and Iowa. Had a pretty good year overall, but we had some hot nights, or we didn't have extreme high temperatures, but we had a lot of hot nights, and that took some of the top end yield out. Fought a little thing called southern rust. We see that occasionally, but we saw it at levels that we had never seen it at before, and I hope we don't ever see it again. But it really showed our rating system on a lot of our hybrids. Those that are rated strong against southern rust really shine, and those that weren't rated so well didn't. It also taught some guys maybe we need to invest in a fungicide and make those plans and have that lined out and ready to go in case we do see a southern rust or a tar spot explosion again. So
that's the way a lot of diseases are, aren't they? They've been here, they might get here, they don't go this. You better have a plan, and if there's something out there that can help. So for Ohio producers, how should we take a look at disease control for the upcoming season?
The thing is to start now. It's fresh in your mind. You know what you had in 26 or 25. What you don't know what 26 is going to bring. But start having those conversations with your retailers and your dealers, figuring out what products you might need to combat that, whether it's the hybrid you're using or the variety of beans or the chemistry program. And have your plan in place, and you can always adapt it. It's better to have it in place and not need it than trying to figure it out at the last minute. So,
as we look at several different opportunities, is there an ideal plant population? For years, we talked about a number that we thought was going to get too high, but most of the places I was on the farm last fall, the number they actually were aiming for was lower than I expected. So do you have a particular number, or does it truly come down to the farm and the variety they're looking at?
It comes down a little bit to the farm and the variety and the management they're providing. Some of those, if you want to push the population, depends a little bit on a lot of these hybrids will have a semi-flex ear, so if the conditions are right, that'll help flex. And if the conditions aren't right, you saved your money on some additional seed. Certain hybrids, you plant them a little thicker, can create some problems for you too. With little crowding and cause some root problems late season. So it's a balance, and that's key to working with your agronomist or your dealer, fine-tuning what those populations should be for your farm under your management.
This is Brian Krager with Bayer. We're talking about DeKalb. Let's talk a little bit. In chemical side, we talk about pipelines. Right. As we look at the seed side, how do you start looking at the possibility of more disease resistance? What kind of research process does that take before you actually bring a variety to market?
It's a long, tedious process. Bayer's really doing a good job promoting. They got 10 new products coming out over the next 10 years, and that's chemistry, seed traits, a lot of those. But from when somebody has an idea, it can take 10, 15 years to make that a reality. And so patience is the virtue. But we have a lot of new things coming down the pipeline on the corn side. We'll have corn rootworm 4 coming in the very near future for guys that need a corn rootworm protection. It's going to be a couple new proteins because just like weeds, insects are adapting. So this is be the newest and latest and greatest, some new proteins to combat those insects in those areas where they fight those.
Where can we find more information about our topics?
Go to BayerCropScience.com or just type in DeKalb, and that'll get you to where you need to be. You can see what products for your geography, what products are in the pipeline, and just general information can get you hooked up with a dealer if you don't have one.
Brian, thanks for the update.
Hey, thank you.
Dale, appreciate it. Let's get a check now of the markets. First, though, news behind the numbers with Ryan Martin, brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky. Call 574-566-2113 for information on soybean marketing to LDC.
Grain markets finished last Friday mixed to mostly lower. Honestly, the only place we saw positive numbers was in Chicago wheat at the close of business last Friday. Corn fractionally down, beans down 2 to 3. Minneapolis wheat was down as well. We worked through some fairly low volume trade on Friday. There was no confirmation of Chinese interest in U.S. corn. There were flash sales noted to China worth about 134,000 metric tons, and no other demand was reported. And the rumors of China's interest in U.S. corn off the PNW have so far been unfounded. It does look like China is on track to secure 10 to 12 million metric tons of U.S. soybean prior to spring, but it remains that these purchases are political in nature. What I mean by that is it's still much cheaper to buy out of South America. And on top of that, Sinograin had another soybean auction last Friday, and it was disappointing. After the first auction they had, they moved almost 75% of what they offered. Last Friday, they didn't move a whole lot, and that means there may not be additional purchase to refill those stocks anytime soon. I'm Ryan Martin.
We are slightly higher in the overnight trade with March corn up 3/4 at $4.44.5. Soybeans for January 10.50.5 up by $0.0125, and wheat for July $0.0125 higher at $5.33 a bushel. Markets brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. After Friday's trade, live cattle for December closing at $230.40 up $1.97. February up $240 at $230.80. Lean hogs for February $84.50 up 37. April up 17 points at 89.12, and feeder cattle for March 339.40 up 480. The April up 442 at 337.60. For the Ohio AgNet, I'm Ty Higgins. We'll see you down the road.